We talked about it a little bit last week, a little bit the week before. Who should the third permanent opponent be for Ole Miss football? We let you know in just a few minutes. This is Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. A little bit under the weather, but I'm going to try and power through. There's my Twitter handle down below. You can follow me there. We do a bunch of fun stuff there. And also, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell for notifications of new videos, and of course, upvote the video itself. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, post-game live will be an option. That's going to be a lot of fun for Ole Miss fans and people that want to turn in for a live stream that'll be completely interactive with a chat area that'll be about right here. And you'll be able to participate in the show. So it should be a lot of fun. All right. Today I want to talk about who I think that Ole Miss should have for their third permanent opponent. Everybody's like, okay, that's obvious because LSU and Mississippi State are free spaces when it comes to permanent opponents. And I think that the SEC is eventually going to go to the 3-6 model because the 1-7 model is stupid and causes way too many problems. If you think back to 1992 happened because of the third Saturday in October. That's how permanent opponents got mixed in with the 6 divisional teams. Alabama and Tennessee got saved, and that way they got to play Auburn and Tennessee. Auburn and Georgia got to play. Games like that continued to happen. But as a result of that scheduling, whenever that happened, some big rivals disappeared. Ole Miss and Tennessee, who they had played forever. There was always a game in November that you could look forward to. That game stopped being played with any consistency. Auburn and Florida, which was a huge rival, stopped being played consistently. So as we get closer to the SEC making a major overhaul again, when they go to 16 teams with the admission of Texas and Oklahoma, I do want to take a time to think about where we sit and if rivals have to get lost, who should get lost and which one should we keep? And we talked about the candidates a couple weeks ago. I mean, that was fine. The 3 candidates that I really took, that I really thought that was in line for the position was the Arkansas game, the Tennessee game, and the Vanderbilt game. So let that marinate a little bit and understand exactly how they sit. Now, if you look at Tennessee, there's a lot of reasons you could have them as a third opponent. I don't think Ole Miss would do that, even though a couple weeks ago I said I might. I think that that's been dead for 30 years, and there's people essentially my age and older are the only ones that remember that. The younger crowd has no idea that the Ole Miss Tennessee game was even a game, even something to pay attention to. Me, I remember Tyrone Ashley catching a 90-yard touchdown pass. I remember Kelly Powell to Jamie Holder in the corner of the end zone for a 13-10 victory in Knoxville. That's what I remember about that game. Then you have Ole Miss and Arkansas. And Ole Miss and Arkansas, and I'm going to do a video on this. I'm going to find somebody from Arkansas that would be willing to give their side of the story. But the premise of this video is why the Arkansas game matters. And we're going to talk about everything. The 7 overtime game, 4th and 25. The hit last year of 52-51. There's been some absolutely insane games in the series. And Ole Miss and Arkansas goes back when they were in the Southwest Conference, before they were in the SEC. And they stopped playing in 6-1. I want to research that a little bit and why they quit. But before that, they played every year for like 20 years. So that rivalry existed. And, you know, it's become a fun rivalry. Now, the thing we have to remind ourselves is that if you do not make the 3 permanent opponents, that game will still happen every other year. So every other year, Ole Miss will play Texas. Every other year, Ole Miss will play A&M. Every other year, they'll play Oklahoma. Every other year, they'll play Florida. Every other year, they'll play Georgia. So it's going to be a much bigger turnaround for teams if they follow this model. But the question becomes, which are the games that you want to have happen every year? Now, like I said, the 3-6 model is probably going to be the model that wins. Just because if you look back to what happened in 92 and how they designed scheduling for that. Now, they bungled 2012, but if you go back to 92 and see exactly how it does, you can see that there are going to be some games that are going to get chopped, some that are going to get protected. And you can look at those 92 games as a benchmark for, I don't know, the benchmark for which games will be protected moving forward. Now, we think Texas is going to be Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. Those 3 permanent opponents that you really can't, that they're the one school that has 3 that just fit like a glove. Now, Oklahoma is a little bit more difficult. You have Texas, you have Missouri, and then you have, it could be anybody. But if you look at it carefully, and in 1992, you can see that I think Ole Miss's permanent opponent should be Vanderbilt. Their record is Ole Miss leads the series 51-39-2. It's a game where Vanderbilt's been competitive, and this is not just recently whenever they were winning games. When Ole Miss has been down, Vanderbilt has given them problems. It's a game that Vanderbilt thinks they can win. That's the reason everybody says, why does Vanderbilt play Ole Miss so hard? It's because they think they can win. And sorry about that. My dog is going crazy. The yard guy's here. So you look at Vanderbilt's rivals, Tennessee, which they've obviously played 112 times. Ole Miss, they've played 92 times or something like that. Kentucky, they've played 94 times. I don't know if those 3 is going to be the permanent rivals, but they should. They absolutely should. And it's just something to keep in mind moving forward as we go into this, that whenever they do these rivalries, there's some games that's going to get chopped. And we have to remember that every other year you will play the team that gets chopped. It's not going to be something to where Texas A&M and Georgia has never gone to Kyle Field until this year. Just absolutely have not. And the scheduling has been just a joke because Missouri and Texas A&M, they got caught off guard. I think everybody will admit that they got caught off guard. That's the reason Missouri is in the East. They're trying to figure out a way to make it fit. But with Texas and Oklahoma, they have a chance to make it right. Try and find something that makes sense. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the SEC-only playoff and what that exactly means. And would anybody watch? So, we will talk about that in a few minutes. Anyway, BetOnline is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports information. Find all your sports developments, news, odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, NHL Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, fighting news from MMA, UFC, and boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Like Ole Miss is a 21.5-point favorite in Week 1 against Troy, and also they are projected to win 7.5 regular season games. That's the futures at betonline.net. So BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Although we have an important favor to ask you. We have put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now and get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. All right. So in the first segment, we talked about why Vanderbilt probably should be Ole Miss's third permanent opponent. And whenever I do my videos of which game matters, you will have more of that. The first one I think I'm going to start with is Arkansas. So look for that in the coming weeks, Ole Miss and Arkansas, why that series matters. Because with games going away, I think that there should be a little bit of a history back up on it. So I'm going to find somebody from Arkansas to give their side of the story. I'm going to talk about our side of the story, and there will be no trash talking or anything like that. It'll be just very, very, very much why this series matters, why it's great. Both sides talking about it. So it should be a lot of fun. All right. There is the possibility of a 16-team SEC-only playoff. Yes, let me repeat that. There's a possibility of a 16-team SEC-only playoff in which I guess they admit 8 teams or something like that. And they actually play it off. And I don't know if the winner of that is the SEC champion and they can go to the college football playoff if there's a 4-team. I don't know. But the possibility for that tournament does exist. Now, here's my opinion on that. I think if they actually do it, they don't plan on doing it at 16 teams. They plan on doing it at 28 teams. They're going to go get North Carolina, USC, Ohio State, and they're just going to get all the power schools from all over the country. They're going to put them in one conference and let them be AAA football. That's that point. But I think that is a false flag operation. Because the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC formed something they called the Alliance. And in that alliance, they bit their nose off to spite their face. They threw the baby out with the bathwater. Any way you want to put it. They voted down expansion of the college football playoff, in which it included 6 automatic bids. That would be an automatic bid for each of the Power 5 conferences and the highest finishing G5 conference. And then 6 at-large berths for the 12-team playoffs. It was done, if you remember correctly. It was all done. And then the alliance happened. And the crux of it is the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC think ESPN has too much power in college football, which honestly they probably do. But because of them trying to find a way to get Fox into the ESPN playoff, it turned into a grudge match. And nothing ended up happening. It ended up being 4 teams, ESPN. I mean, if nothing happens, I don't think they get it. That the future, when everything's the status quo, the conference that is dominating currently and the network that is dominating currently is going to continue to do so for the next 4 years. And even extend their lead even a little bit more. But, that's fine. So I think the SEC 16-team playoff or 8-team playoff or whatever it is, the SEC only playoff, is a way to remind everybody that we are the big dog. We can do what we want to do. If we want more playoffs, we can do more playoffs. Your automatic bids mean nothing to us. What we were offering was kind and generous, and it was a grow the game type of invitation. But a 12-team playoff with no automatic bids is what we actually want. Because we do realize that in that situation, probably 6 or 7 teams have a chance to get in. So, don't fall too far for the SEC only playoffs, because I do think it is a false flag operation. It is the way for the SEC to get playoff expansion. To get people at the table, they're going to get scared, and they can do that. It is just the fact that one of the things, the SEC has the biggest guns, and they're threatening to use them. And the Pac-12, the Big Ten, they may not like that. But the alternative is college football completely blows up. Everything that we know about it right now is gone. That's the alternative. And there's some people that will want the alternative. But there's a lot of college football traditionalists that will not. And the only way that can be prevented is by them getting off of their position, expanding the playoff to 12 teams, even with the 6 automatic bids. And the SEC agrees to play ball. There might be a situation where if it goes down too far down the road, the SEC will make plans to do things their own way. And if they decide that they're going to go after these teams, they're going to go after these teams. And it's just going to become survival of the fittest in these small conferences. And basically what you'll have then is you'll have the SEC and then the equivalent of a bunch of G5 conferences, which will probably have their own playoff. It'll do fine and whatever, but it'll be like AA football. AAA football will be the SEC thing. Everybody else will be AA. And you can, see how that looks. But that is what that playoff means. This is what the SEC is doing. I don't think the SEC will actually do it, but I think they will threaten it to honestly make people scared of it. Now, they could call the SEC on their bluff, and the SEC could actually pull it off and do it. The SEC has the ability to do it. So don't think about too much about that, but it is what it is. Anyway, we have Cara McCutcheon coming up. She's been gone for close to a month, actually. She's going to come by and talk social media stuff, little Juice Kiffin, a little NIL, and, we should have fun. I think she's going to wear her new NFL team jersey. So tune in for that. So stick around for that, and we'll be right back. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. Give us a 5-star review, but you can say whatever you want to. Just give us a 5-star review. You can say, hey, he has really good guests, but he's not very good himself. You can say that. It doesn't matter. And an example of that is Cara McCutcheon. She's back for the first time in like 3 or 4 weeks, and we're going to talk about some social media and everything going on around Ole Miss. How you doing, Cara?
Doing good. Thanks for having me back. I'm so excited.
Is that a Matt Corral Carolina jersey?
It is. I got a Matt Corral Carolina jersey. I'm so excited. People are like, you're crazy to go ahead and get that, but I believe in Matt and showing my support.
Yeah, right. As a Saints fan, I cannot condone it, but I understand why you got it. One of the things that is completely taking over the internet over the last week, and I don't know what, and it's not something that's necessarily my cup of tea, but the Juice Kiffin Twitter account, that's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, so Ole Miss is bringing, I guess, the first dog of Twitter. I think Juice had hit about 2,000 or 3,000 followers within like 2 hours. I don't think anyone truly knows who's behind the Juice account, but my thoughts are it's Lane's daughter. She's obviously gotten her father's sense of humor and wit, but just the photos and everything, this person is obviously someone who is close with the family, or at least in the family, but definitely funny. I even see Bama fans on there wanting Juice to don Bama gear. So lots of stuff that Juice is bringing to the table here on Twitter. It's my personal goal to be quote tweeted by Juice, so I'm working on it.
Okay, yeah, that's something else. So how do you think Ole Miss is? They're obviously using Juice Kiffin. This is part of their recruiting philosophy. What do you think's going on there?
You know what? I have to say I love Lane's creativity. He uses almost anything to draw in with recruitment. He uses his social media. Obviously, we're seeing some of these guys. I think even Jaden Rashada, when he came in, was holding Juice as a puppy. when he first got him. We're seeing a lot of him at the camps. He's very much involved in going to the SEC days with Lane. So I have to say Lane's just very creative, and he's just using all these fun things to get, puppies, cars, even children to kind of bring in this look. And I have to say it's highly creative and just really brings a lot of attention there. So, I mean, who else has their dog in recruitment? So...
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, looking at everything, is like, what is Lane trying to present to recruits? Because an Aston Martin and a puppy is two completely different things. And it's almost contradictory as for the image you're trying to put on. But I guess it's just whatever works, maybe?
Who doesn't love a puppy, honestly? I think he's just really... seems very open with his life, and I think one of the things that's nice about that is the closeness. Like, here's these recruits holding his puppy. Like, it just shows this closeness that he's willing to have and bring these players in and be like, hey, you're already family, like you're bonding with my dog. I just think he brings this closeness and shows his personality, and Lane is who Lane is, and I kind of appreciate that he kind of sticks to that motto.
Yeah, it's something else. And Lane Kiffin has kind of been in the news over the last couple of weeks. We haven't really had you on while all of this happened. I don't think we've had you on since the fight between Saban and Jimbo and all of that.
No.
So that was all NIL based. And Lane has some very interesting thoughts on NIL, and he's not afraid to tell anybody about that. What are your thoughts on what's going on, and what do you think he's trying to do?
So I think there's two things that should be looked here. I think Lane, despite what most think, I think Lane is a very strategic guy, and he knows what he wants. And I think he knows how to get there. The one thing that, if you notice about when Lane said his comments and alluded to certain things, it was kind of thought of as, oh, Lane's like the younger brother. He's a little bit obnoxious, But then when Nick Saban said those same things, you have, who was it? I think even Steve Spurrier, who came out and said, oh, I don't think Nick said anything wrong. Or you even see Gus Malzahn saying, oh, I don't think there was anything Nick said that was out. So I think Lane is very strategic in his approach. I think he knows how to manipulate, in a way, the system. And if you notice, since he's kind of said those things, you're seeing more. For Nick Saban, do I think Nick Saban thought his comments were going to get out the way they did? Honestly, I don't. I think he was at a booster meeting and he was trying to make a point to the boosters. And I think they got a little misconstrued, but I think what he wants and his sentiments are still there, and they match Lane's. So I think Lane is a very strategic guy, and I think Lane knows how to work the system, and that's kind of what he's been doing. And you're starting to see that support. But it's not really for Lane. It's more, oh, Nick Saban, the king of college football, has said it, and we're all going to go. But if you listen to what Nick Saban said, it's really not different from what Lane has been saying repeatedly.
Yeah, if you go back to a video that I did, may have been our first video that we did on YouTube, that said that NIL is going to kill capital campaigns. And then you find out last week that they're putting our capital campaign on hold because of the current situation with college football. And that lets you know with NIL, it's just taking all of the oxygen out of the room. Ole Miss isn't in a position to compete 1 through 25 with Texas A&M. They're just not. Gas prices being what they are, Texas A&M has plenty of money to move forward. But 1 through 11, Ole Miss can compete. In the transfer portal, Ole Miss can compete. And I think that's strategically where they're looking to go right now in this NIL environment.
So I agree. And I think there's two sides to that here. There's a side of things that we'll learn this year, how that transfer portal option main goes, and having this. I think there's a rumor out there that we're having cultural problems. I've heard it a couple times where people ask me like, oh, I've heard with all the transfers and people coming from different areas, like, you're having cultural problems. And I said, well, what's the difference from having high schoolers coming from different schools to play together than this? Like, it's really the same premise. But I think that we'll kind of see Lane prove or show, like, you can kind of skirt around the recruiting. And also with NIL, you can pay, I guess, a little less in the transfer portal because these guys are probably not going to be there as long. So I think we'll find out this year how successful that model might be. And I think he's testing it out and seeing what works. Like I said, I think Lane's a very strategic guy. I think he knows the system very well. And so I'm very trusting to what he's doing. He's obviously proven to pull in a lot of great guys throughout it. So we'll see. I mean, we have a lot of weapons coming in. We're growing in defense. So we'll see if it works. I think the other side of that, though, if Lane were to go, we're kind of stuck without this future, though, so much with recruits. But I think with the transfer portal, you might see you don't really have that future anymore with recruits if they're all leaving after 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, and if Lane goes, most of the roster is going to go with him.
Yeah.
But the next coach, they're going to build back up in the transfer portal as well. It might look completely different, but it is what it is. Let's talk a little bit about Jaden Rashada and Roman Rashada and the saga that is going on with them. And what are you hearing there?
So as far as Jaden, I think it's pretty much determined that a lot of people think Jaden is set for Florida. Now, my Farrell, sorry, I might say his name wrong. He's under the impression that Jaden is going to go with family at the end. He still thinks Ole Miss is the underdog here. You know, I think Jaden really likes Lane. I think Jaden can grow with Lane. I'll say it might get some. I have not seen anybody grow yet really under Jimbo. As far as
definitely not at the quarterback position. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, I think, and I don't really know enough to say with Billy. I think Billy Napier is still very new. So I think Lane has a little bit of an edge there that he can pull, that he's had a little more experience in the SEC and developing quarterbacks than Billy Napier. But there's also the rumor that Jaden Rashada's dad is very much involved. And there's a lot of NIL talk there. Again, this is rumor. Please understand that there's no actual to that, but it's rumor that his dad is very much involved and that there's a big push between UF, but there is thought with his brother Roman coming to Ole Miss that family might win out. We might see that Kim Dichi kind of style again.
Yeah, we had John Garcia on the show this week, and we talked about that Kim Dichi factor and everything. Maybe Ole Miss will get a little bit of a discount in NIL to where you can have them both together. But I think Ole Miss can go as high as they need to with Jaden Rashada. I think they're in a good position with him. I think he's been here like once officially and 3 times unofficially, and that's pretty good for somebody from California. That's more than I've been to Mississippi in the last 3 years.
Yeah, myself included, being here in Texas. I would say also for Roman, I'm pretty excited for what I've looked into with Roman. I think he was classified at first as a 4-star JUCO transfer. I think there's a lot to be there. I think our DB room is looking very nice. So I'm pretty excited there. I think I kind of feel still good here about with Jaden. I'm not yet convinced we're out of this. So
yeah, I think he commits in basically a week and a half, in 10 days. So we'll find out. And also Bryson Sanders is committing like 14 days from now. So it could be a big month for commits, especially in the high school ranks. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen today. Now make your second listen, the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast with Raphael Barlow, Richard Strayman, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin. Give fans an in-depth look at biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and of course, big boards. Follow Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Audacity app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Cara, thank you very much for stopping by. I look forward to doing this every week. And next week, I'm sure something will happen as we get closer to media days. I think the news cycle will pick up a little bit.
Exactly. Well, hi, Toddy, and go Rebel baseball.
Hotty toddy.